keep saying I like that more and more every time I hear it. Hi, welcome to another round of Ray's Boom Boom Room. I'm your host, Ray Mancini, here with my ace corner man, cut man, my Mighty Mike Case. And then we got a very, very special guest today. One of the few shows I've been excited about, I should say, for a long time. Probably since what you brought, Rick brought up, because he heard the show when we had the alien abductors, the sex alien abductors. That was interesting. Alien beings mating with the human beings. You know, it's interesting. Anyhow, that was kind of freaky, wasn't it?
That was a little freaky when I clicked on that. Yeah.
Anyhow, talking about today, Rick Porrello. My guest is Rick Porrello from Cleveland, Ohio, who is the best-selling author of 4 books now. One of them was made into a critically acclaimed film, about 20 years ago.
Kill the Irishman?
Yeah.
It was 2011.
Oh, okay.
It seems like it
about 10 years ago.
I remember.
It took 20
Well,
years.
it was because I remember, if I remember, it was about that time, 2000, I did my film here, that it was in development.
It was in
and
development,
I thought
yeah,
that it was going to get
quite a while,
made,
yeah. Yeah, but it did get made.
It did get made.
Yeah.
And Rick, but let me get back. Former policeman, become a police chief,
Right.
captain, chief, whatever. First the captain and chief.
Well, I had a 33-year career on the police force, and my last 10 were as the police chief of my agency.
Wow, that's and Rick wrote the books. I'm going to tell you, and I wrote his recent book. It's called Bombs, Bullets, and Bribes: The True Story of a Notorious Jewish Mobster, Alex Shonda Burns. Now, if you're from the Cleveland, Youngstown area, Shonda Burns is, and you know that world a little bit, or you're interested in that world a bit. Shonda Burns is legendary in that world, correct?
I would say.
Shonda Burns would be the Hyman Roth or Meyer Lansky or Mickey Cohen, of the Cleveland, Youngstown area, northeastern Ohio. And actually, you talk about how he was friends and collaborated with Mickey Cohen on.
Yeah, he was out in Los Angeles with Mickey Cohen. He was down in Miami with
Meyer Lansky.
Fat Jaime from Pittsburgh, New York, the families in New York, the Gambino family.
Yeah, what people don't realize, we've talked about this often, Mike, how significant the northeastern Ohio, Cleveland mob, but which has their tentacles in Youngstown, much like again, we talk about Youngstown, Ohio, great city, one of my city. It's my love, my hometown, but it's part of our history. You can't deny it. And when I did a documentary about 10 years ago called Youngstown Still Standing, about a history of Youngstown. Some people got upset because their family members were mentioned. Raymond, my family. My job as a storyteller. Me and Rick talked about it as a story to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
The truth is the truth.
The truth is the truth. You can't make it up.
Right.
It's got to be this whole story, not part of the story. And Youngstown's more than just being a mob town.
Sure.
We're
There's
great
good
city.
news and there's bad news.
Right. But that's part of our history. So we talk about that. And so when you do the story, and Rick tells a very, your books are tremendous. I've read the books. They're very colorful because you can't make up. I'm a firm believer the fact is stranger than fiction. You can't make up stuff, as good as what there is,
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about what we're going to talk about. But when your book, the first book you wrote, was the Sugar Wars.
The rise and fall of the
Rise and
Cleveland
fall.
Mafia.
Cleveland Mafia, Sugar Wars.
Yeah. Corn, sugar, and blood.
Well, the Sugar Wars. Let me just say that.
All right, I'm
but
just
it's
saying.
actually about his family.
Yeah.
It was between the Porrellos and
The 4
and
Leonardo
Leonardos.
brothers, right. 7 Porrello brothers, 4 Leonardo brothers.
His grandfather, your grandfather was killed during that war.
My grandfather was killed, and 3 of my great uncles were killed.
Well, tell us about how that got you writing.
Well, they were mafia families back then. The Leonardo brothers were the first mafia family of Cleveland, and they.
What years are we talking about?
After Prohibition began,
So
early
20s.
1920s, mid 1920s,
Mm-hmm.
and they were friends with the 7 Porrello brothers. They came from out of Sicily together. They emigrated to the United States, settled in Cleveland, and they were friends. And they made their money wholesaling corn sugar during Prohibition, when alcohol was illegal, and corn sugar was used to ferment into corn liquor.
Yeah, that's how you made it, right?
It was very popular back then. I think closest, I don't know a whole lot about liquor, but I think it's closest to bourbon.
Which I have.
Yeah,
And
right
wood
behind
right
you,
here.
as a matter of fact.
Right here.
Bronze medalist.
There you go.
Now, clarify a little bit. Let me go back. My family's from Sicily. Rick's family is from Sicily, correct?
Yes,
Your family.
my father's family. Yeah.
Family, first time. And my family comes from the Costa de Mare de Golfo, which is the area where the La Cosa Nostra started. That area. And my family's from Village de Bagheria, province of Palermo, right outside of Palermo, right outside. So that area is the Costa de Mare de Golfo, is where the La Cosa Nostra started, and all these little towns up there. And when I tell people, correct me if I'm wrong, when La Cosa Nostra started, it started for righteous reasons. Because Sicily were peasants, were the slaves. It was a jail, basically. They took a lot of the worst criminals, and they sent them to Sicily, because it was an island off of the bottom of Calabria, south of the mainland. And so it was like Alcatraz, per se, let's say that. And so people went there, and then, then different people came from different parts of the country, because Sicily was overrun by the Moors, by the nomads. They've been overrun by so many
It's a
different...
long list.
Yeah,
So,
and it's close to a lot of, it's close to Africa, it's close to Italy,
exactly.
it's close to...
So the village of my grandfather, and most of Sicily, the villages of Sicily are Arabic names. Our language is a different language. We don't speak, like people, when I go to Italy, I speak to them, and they always say to me, and they tell me in the time, you don't speak Italian, you speak Sicilian, so speak English. Because it's not another dialect. There's 40 to 41 different dialetti in Italy. Sicilian is not one of them. It's a different language. Our words end in U, not A or O. End in U.
The letter U.
The letter U, not O, like in masculino, in feminine, and then U. But they do end. So, because our language comes from Greek and Arabic, because that's who ran Sicily. And then it was and that was the only language spoken up to about 1200, until the Pezzo from Rome, the hierarchy, said these people are peasants and slaves. Why are we speaking our language? We got to speak our own, and they took it from Latin. So this is what I'm saying. So Sicily has large influence on Italian culture for many, many years, but including the language. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's why the culture of and so how La Cosa Nostra started was people said that, we were peasants, and then they were the people weren't giving them, paying what they said they would pay them from the mainland. People were starving in Sicily. Finally, they got together and said, "Hey, why are we getting the short end? We're those slaving in the fields. We're not even getting what we're supposed to get. We got to keep it amongst ourselves. Make it our thing," which La Cosa Nostra literally means our thing. And that's when people when they come here, they're going to have to fight us for it. And that's how the Cosa Nostra started, for righteous reasons. They were stealing from Sicily, working the lands, because that's a sea town, getting the fish. It's a pescatore area, and working the fields and whatever, and giving it to the mainland, and weren't getting paid. So they said, "Well, screw you. You come and get it."
I think my take is they wanted to protect themselves from the corrupt government, the corruption of the government.
Of the Italian government.
Because they were stealing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. So that's why it means. But like anything that starts for righteous reasons, once it gets brought to America, and even in Sicily at that time, that's when the killing started. Because you come and get it, you take it to them. Well, how do you go? You got to kill them to stop. And so when the immigrants came to America, a lot of them were made men over there. Came to America, they did the same thing in the different areas of New York. Same thing before the Irish came before the Italians. The Irish gangs and Jewish gangs before the Irish.
Yeah.
So the Jewish mob, then there's the Irish mob, now we got the Italian mob. And but that's how the whole thing started. But that's why our areas were the microorganism of La Cosa Nostra, which is now the modern
And it's a
mob.
different story, but in New York there was a war in the 30s. It was called the War of the Castellamarese.
Castellamarese.
Yeah.
Castellamarese,
But-
Maranzano, and Salvatore Maranzano, and
Right.
Giuseppe
Masseria.
Mazzaria.
Mazzaria. Yeah.
Mazzaria.
But in Cleveland, it was they made their money with corn sugar, and then, make a long story short, there was a conflict that developed. And then pretty soon the killings started. Somebody in the Porrello crew, somebody in the Leonardo crew, and then pretty soon, in I think it was October of 1927, what they call the Sugar War, which you were referring to, began when two of the Leonardo brothers, Big Joe, the boss, and his brother John, were killed, and they were killed in the Porrello barber shop in the back room. It was kind of the Porrello business headquarters. I think they cut some hair there too. But that's how it started. And then when it was all said and done by 1932, when my grandfather was killed, 4 of the 7 Porrello brothers were dead, and 3 of the 4 Leonardo brothers were dead. And then the new, the younger group, like we were talking, that were more business oriented, began, and that was the Mayfield Road Mob and Frank Milano and Al Polizzi and their Jewish partners, Mo Dalitz, and Kleinman, and Rothkopf.
Who was the godfather of Las Vegas. Mo Dalitz had the DI.
The legitimate godfather.
Well,
that's what's kind of funny.
I mean, they started it with Bugsy Siegel and them coming out, but Mo Dalitz, they had him run it anyway.
Yeah, but then he became a real estate developer.
Yeah, after a while.
I think it's ironic they called him the Godfather of Las Vegas.
Because he literally was. Because he ran because he went out to shortly after they started building the
DI,
the Flamingo, which was the original hotel.
Yeah.
Well, one of the originals, but that's the one that Bugsy Siegel got killed on because he was overspending the money. But they sent Mo Dalitz out there because the Jewish mob. See, we were talking about the Jewish mob in America and the Italian mob rose together, and they crossed over. And you couldn't now. And if you were in a Jewish mob, you weren't going to be made into the Italian mob. But why would you want to? You got your own thing. Mm-hmm. So they rose together as partners, and that's when Lucky Luciano and Marlansky made the organized crime or national syndicate. That's right. Because the Jewish mob in Cleveland, but Mo Dalitz is the Lou
Rothkopf.
Rothkopf.
Yeah.
Who else? The
Kleinman. There were 4 or 5 of them.
They're major guys. Major guys.
Yeah. And then they got into gambling. They went legit. They were looking to legitimize their investments. But they wound up in Cuba, which is a part of the story in Bombs, Bullets, and Bribes about how they needed to get on the right side of the Cuban Revolution so that they could maintain their casinos, because there were tons of money coming out of those casinos.
And for a lot of people,
yeah.
A lot of the American organized.
But they went first. They started in Cleveland. Then when the law enforcement, when things got too hot, they moved out into the outlying, into the suburbs, then into the outlying counties, and then from there they went down to Cincinnati, into Kentucky, and then fanned out west, like you mentioned, Las Vegas, and
even Los Angeles, because Los Angeles had
Mickey Cohn and
Milano,
Milano. Yep. Yeah.
Who's the most ruthless of the mobs? The Irish, the Jewish, or the Italians?
I don't think it's between the ethnic groups so much as you might look at some of the individual contracted killers or hitmen. And some of them were ruthless. Some of them rose to the level of almost being serial killers. I mean, they were very efficient.
Well, we'll talk about them, but
they had no problem with what they did.
But correct me if I'm wrong, right? The Latino mobs now, South.
Oh, now
the cartels. Well, you're saying the mob, but I thought you meant then
or now.
I meant then.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But now is fine
I'm thinking
too.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
yeah,
you.
now there's no comparison,
right.
because if they're looking to, these gangs now, especially the drug cartels, they're looking to hit Ray, and they come in this room, they'll take everybody out. Whereas the mob, they didn't want that kind of heat. They're looking to hit one guy, they're gonna hit him.
And you say no families and no women and children.
That was some unwritten rules or etiquette, right. I guess.
But Rick,
rules,
and they're talking about
but they
now,
broke them too.
No, it's one of the worst things is the Jamaican mob. Jamaican mob are forget about taking out families and the whole,
It's terrible.
Yeah, they're done.
Terrible.
Yeah,
the whole drug thing.
Yeah, but that's a whole different thing now. Is this whole wind-up? But at that time, to answer your question, and you know better than me, but I would think from just reading, it was a hobby. I've always read books. When I used to get books of Babe Ruth and Jim Thorpe, I used to get of Al Capone and Lucky Luciano. My mom thought, well, what is it? it was part of my history. It's not who I am. It's part of my. But I loved. They're the modern day cowboys.
Yep.
The Irish mob at that time were vicious.
Yeah.
The early, them vicious. They were vicious.
I've heard the mob genre called the new Western.
It
And I
is,
heard
the
this
modern
probably
day
10
cowboys.
years ago.
The modern day cowboys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
don't dispute it.
a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people are fascinated by those stories.
Always.
Is it? Well, let me ask you that then. 100% Italian. You're Italian. You're Italian. I always thought it'd be cool if my family was in the mafia. We weren't. It was a little disappointing actually that we weren't. Is it glamorous at all, like it is in the movies, or is that just a complete fabrication?
For
Especially
those
around here.
For those who are inclined to think it's glamorous, then it's glamorous.
For the
Like,
street, on the everyday stuff, if you get noticed on the street, so and so, but that's no life.
Shonda Burns had restaurants. He had nightclubs throughout his career, and they did well. And one of the reasons why is because the average Joe, if they're going out to eat and see a band or see a show, why not have a spicy host too that's over there is going to greet you at the door, and it's like, look at that. There's Shonda Burns over there. You know the story of John Gotti being out to eat and people asking for his autograph. It's the same thing. So if people are inclined to think it's glamorous, they're the ones who make it glamorous.
Right, because a lot of the mob, look, in Youngstown back in the 60s, Vince De Niro had Cicero's. That was his place.
Probably a popular place, right?
It was up on Market Street.
But
of
is
course.
it like when they come, in the movies they come in and they put a special table right up front, put the tablecloth down,
sure.
invite the guy over, have him sit down? To me, that's so cool.
Depending on how much money they spend and how much
Yeah.
influence they have with the place, probably.
Yeah.
Right, for
Right,
certain
right. That's
for
right.
certain guests. For,
But they do
Ray,
that.
they would probably do that
They
for
did
Ray.
that.
Well, they do it now, actually.
I can't get a cup of coffee next
Oh,
door
here
now.
we go.
But back when I was fighting, I used to go in when I was in Vegas. They want you there.
Uh-huh.
They want you seeing your place. Everything was on an arm because they wanted to see if celebrities there. At the time, I actually had a little heat on me. Now I can't get, like I said, can't get a cup of coffee. So anyhow, but at that time, so they want you there. They wanted you to be seen in their joint. And that's so. The Wise Guys were the same thing. They were celebrities. They were bigger than life.
Is there, you retired when?
In April.
And you
The end of
started in, you said 86.
86,
right?
yeah.
Was there still mafia on the east side of Cleveland then?
Back then, sure, there was. Now they were coming out of a lot of the dominoes had toppled with the Danny Green murder, all the prosecutions, and then the drug war that resulted in, many of the guys going to prison, including Angelo Leonardo, of course, eventually came out as a very, very high-ranking
Informant.
cooperating witness.
That's
for the
it.
feds.
He was a boss. He was about that. You never heard of the boss? It was the little echelon guys.
He was the first one.
Yeah. Before any of them, right? Yeah. And he wrote about that, but nobody knew. It was like it was about Whitey Bulger. They didn't know he was a rat for years. But they got his information for others. Allow him to do his thing. Give us about the others. We won't bother you. Kind of, I'm sure with Angelo Leonardo was similar. But you would think they always whack guys. They get kill guys for if they're considered even being a rat. If it's even thought they're a rat. And these guys are the bosses and a rat and everyone
It's
else.
just the culture change.
It is.
You know.
It is. Before you still say was you had to slap a guy once to talk, twice to shut him up. Now you have to you got to slap him once, and then you have to keep slapping just to shut him up.
You can't shut him up.
You can't shut him up, right?
Right.
Back then, these guys really didn't want their kids. A lot of them didn't want their kids getting involved in that, so they sent them to school. We talked about some of the ones that became attorneys.
Right.
The sons or the nephews, and ironically went on to defend their fathers and uncles in court. So you were losing that culture of young men who grew up on the streets. And those tough guys that maybe boxed a little bit, or they were hanging out in street gangs, and you lost that culture. And then at the same time, you had much more success by the federal government working in task forces and collaborating at the local, state, and federal levels, because these guys don't operate in one jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
They cross jurisdictions, so you needed to have that collaboration. And then you had laws coming out of the 70s, anti-racketeering laws, wiretap laws, and the witness security program, the witness protection. and all that came to bear on the mob. And then pretty soon it was who could make the best deal the quickest if they get caught up.
You know, my guy's telling Rick that one thing is when people are Youngstown, they don't understand how strong Youngstown is. Because, and I tell people, a lot of people, you know, the Pizza Connection was a big heroin case out of New York in the mid-'80s, late '70s, early '80s. Youngstown was a major player in that. Youngstown, because Youngstown was a major stopover. It went from New York to Youngstown, Youngstown to Miami, Youngstown to Vegas. And why?
And I've also heard that we're kind of right in between New York and Chicago.
Right.
Is that true too?
Right,
Yes.
and that's what
Literally.
made Cleveland
Yes.
so
Right.
Cleveland and
important during the
Pittsburgh
30s and 40s and 50s.
Would go that way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And in the same way, Youngstown is
Cleveland and
roughly
Pittsburgh.
halfway between
Cleveland and Pittsburgh, same way. So that's why Youngstown's a major stopover. And why? Because both families were overseeing seeing things, making sure, you know, that's why Youngstown, people don't realize, and it's part of our history. It's not our whole history. A lot of people like to think it's our history. It's not.
Is it still out there?
I think it is. You know, the bigger the city.
I mean, could they
New York is
ramp it
shut.
up again, you think? Do you think it could ever become...
I think that would be very difficult. That'd be very difficult.
To get it where it
'cause
once was.
You need government. You need corruption within government, and there's been more.
Seems like there's a lot of that.
Well, but there's been more of an outcry against that than there ever has. And then you got everything that I just mentioned, how you would get past that. And look at any major criminal organized crime trial. There's a cooperating witness from the inside.
Right, always. But you know what changed that? You know what changed it? RICO. RICO changed the game. The RICO Act, guys before, I got guys I knew. First time, man, they get out doing, guys I knew come out doing 8 years. They go, oh, man. And they went and they try to hold up somebody for 50, you know, like, oh, I do that job. I do that 50K. If I can make a quick 50, I said, you challenge. You just got out. Right, man, I could do 5 to 10 years on my head. I could do that. I got to make a score. But when Rico came out, that now they're meeting with him, and you did a crime, but you knew about it, but he doesn't. He could go away for 25 years. Oh, hell no. I ain't doing that because I talked to you, and, you know, and then 2 other guys he talked to said they're going to go with 15. So that's flipping guys down.
It became a crime just to have a role in the organization, and then they had the civil forfeitures. Now, you know, I got a house maybe, and now they're going to take my house away, and I got to worry about my family.
Yeah.
So there were just so many tools and weapons that the government had. I don't know that it could come back, but probably in the bigger cities. We're talking a little bit about Chicago and New York, probably bigger there. Cleveland, maybe not so much. But there's always young men that you know, want to get into a lifestyle like that. It's a lifestyle. It's an identity. It's an identity.
It is. And you can, if you get made, you get, you know, nobody can touch you. But nobody wants. It's a life, man. It's a bad life. It's a hard life.
You're always looking over your shoulder.
You don't know who is and who isn't. Why they get pissed off at you? Why not? It's no life, man. And we talked about that in the history. You know, it's very glamorized. You know, from movies like The Godfather, and you know, of course, Goodfellas and stuff like that. Very glamorized. But most of them guys, are which is what I loved about Donnie Brasco. They're breaking parking meters to get coins. That's more like it.
That's realistic.
That's realistic. Because there's now, if you ain't made, you get a trickle down effect. You get. I know so and so. I know so and so. I know so and so. He's so and so. Like every time I go to a city or I meet so, oh Ray, you know he knows so. I go, he knows him. So what? I know. Yeah, I know people who knows. Everybody knows somebody. That don't mean nothing. But when it's a made guy, well, that means, man, you can't do shit. You get whacked. If you show me disrespect, they'll kill you on dime. That's just, you know. And
you know, one of the ways that Shonda Burns kept his crew loyal was if they got caught up, he always paid the attorney fees. It was kind of like a fringe benefit. They knew that they were going to have a legal defense, and he had attorneys who were very close to him, and consequently, he had crew members that remained loyal for long periods of time until they got into drugs, because drugs were bringing them, you know, easier money than doing the enforcement strong arm work for him. But,
why do you think he was so successful? I mean,
I don't know,
did he have a certain trait, or was he just fall into it?
I think he was just working to live up to being the reputation that had been built up by the newspapers. You know, the newspaper reporters are a big part. We talk about John Gotti, you know, and the publicity and signing autographs.
And he loved it.
And he loved it, which was the antithesis of what they were supposed to be doing.
This is of what Carlo Gambino was,
right,
of that same family.
Right,
Gambino,
right.
Nobody heard him talk.
But Shonda Burns was the same way. He liked the publicity. He'd sit down with reporters. He'd take them to lunch. He'd pay the bill. You know, and they loved him. So there was a lot of ink about him, and he built up this reputation.
But it's funny you hear, because you just said Shonda Burns liked it. But before, who's the greatest of all the Jewish mafia? Meyer Lansky. Nobody ever heard him talk. He's very close to Lucky Luciano. He's the original creator of the National Syndicate, National Mob, how it was created from like an army, army down, you know, the couple of regimes and the consigliere and the capos and the soldiers. And
he tried to stay off the radar screen.
And he did.
Yeah.
He did. But he was the most powerful mob boss, as much powerful as Lucky Luciano was. But he stayed off the radar. And nowadays, like, a lot of these guys, you can't get away from that, man. They love it. You know.
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Like Mike, you were just asking, is it glamorous?
Right.
And I think for some of them, the attraction is more that glamour and that identity, as opposed to power and money.
No.
Right.
You know, there's an episode in
business
in The Sopranos where young Christopher, he wants to be made.
Right.
It's the only thing he wants to be made. And he's never validated in that regard. One day, his mother calls him and said, "Hey, they mentioned you in the newspaper." And he runs out, and he opens the machine, but takes out the whole stack of newspapers, starts handing them out. He got validated, and that's for some of these guys, that's what they're looking for. For some of them, it's a little bit of everything. You know, they want the power, they want the control, they want to be validated, they want to be part of that group. I think it just just depends on their own personality.
Yeah, I think it shows that, especially remember in Goodfellas when Tommy, Joe Pesci's character, going to get straightened out.
Oh yeah,
And they
it's
got
a big day for him.
Big
right?
day for him, but because of something he did years ago, whacked it. You know,
Yeah,
it was a
they
beef
killed
he
him.
would have made, and the guy was made, and he didn't know that, or he did know that. Probably didn't care.
Yeah.
But it was a guy. It was a made guy. He wasn't made yet, and he had this thing with beef with this guy. Killed him. Because he was made, he had to go. So they set up like he was gonna get straightened out. Like people have talked. I've read. I have friends of mine who've in that life talked about times that when they got straightened out, they went in, but a lot of times they knew they got people who got straightened out, people who got called, and if you get called in, that's not to be made. So you got to call. If you get a call, you got to go. It ain't like, well, I'm busy. I can't. You got to go, or you're dead. Or man. So you got no matter what, no matter where you're at, whatever, you got to go. Even if you think it's bad, good, or different, you don't know. And some people, like in Donnie Brasco, when Michael Al Pacino's character, Sonny Black, gives his jewelry to everybody, little money,
Right.
because and he didn't, and he didn't come back, because a lot of guys, one of two days you're going to get, when there's a sit down and you get called in, when you're going to get squared away, you ain't coming back. And really, or it's squashed, and you have the squashed. You're going to be found not guilty, you're guilty, not guilty, or it gets squashed. That's the three things that happen when you have a sit down. So a lot of these guys don't know. They don't know if they come back, and that's why this is the truth. So a lot of these guys, when they come and you hear the stories of these guys, it's pretty traumatic, man. If you hear the stories, the guys don't know if they're going to come back, but you got to go if you choose that life. But if you get made, you get straight out, you got power that you can't describe.
I've got a description in the book of a guy getting made. It's actually Angelo Venardo's testimony, after he went to work, after he flipped. And
what it's like
interesting
to get
read
made?
it.
Is that what you mean?
It's like a half a page or a page maybe describing what it's like walking in that room. And they got a dagger and a gun on the table, and they got the picture of a saint on a card and all that, and you swear allegiance, and it's very much like it's portrayed in many of the movies.
Yeah.
What a lot of people, I'm sure people, you got to write a book. You got to write, and you did, and you got to write a book. And you got to write a book.
No.
You
Let me clarify. I did. The book was written about me. I didn't go there. They came to me.
Okay.
They said, you got to, and after 30 years, people said, you got a book. And I go, no, who cares? I mean, I was 24 when they first approached me. I said, I ain't even lived a life. After then I was approached about 20 years ago. I said, who cares now?
Right.
So, but when
So I guess that's my question.
what I'm saying.
Everybody says that.
They think they got
What
life.
made you take the leap and actually do it?
The first book?
Yeah, let's just say the first time
Well,
around.
it started from researching. We
Your
were talking about
family?
my grandfather being killed.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what happened.
But still, you got to sit down and you got to write that too. I mean, it's a lot of work.
I think I got to the point after looking in the library, the wonderful public library. I'm always thankful to the libraries. The microfilm for the newspaper, in looking up and finding, it wasn't a little article on page 3. It was a headline on page 1. It was the lead headline about Raymond Porrello being murdered, his brother, their bodyguard, being killed. And the more I followed up with that research, the more I saw that it was a huge story and it needed to be told. And something just told me, I just said to myself, I got to write this book. And I started working, but it took 9 years, Mike.
That's my next question.
Yeah, it took a long time. I'm not a
You don't
quick
work
writer.
fast.
Yeah, I do not work
Because
fast.
there was just so much to do, or because you didn't.
Well, and I
feel
just
like
got
it
hired as a
sometimes,
cop
or-
too, so I wasn't writing full
So you were
time.
writing while you were a police officer.
Yes,
Or at home.
yeah. Like I retired in April. I told Ray I just finished co-writing my first screenplay. We finished it in a year. And not that that's that fast, but that's a major project done in a year compared to 9 years.
Well, my guy, I hate to tell Rick, I heard he was retired 5 years. He just didn't know it.
Is that true? Just kicking back at the desk, not doing shit.
I'm working every day. I'm writing every day. Maybe not 8 to 4, but I'm working every day.
That's the job of a writer. You always hear me say, writers write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you weren't a writer. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you are now. But
Yes.
were you an
No,
English
I
major?
wasn't. No, I wasn't an English major. I
That's what I'm
didn't.
saying.
I didn't have a hobby writing. I think it was just because there was a family connection.
Uh-huh.
And I just knew something told me this is huge, and I think it was the big headlines that said this is a huge story. This is about the beginning of the mafia in Cleveland, and I'm going to write this story. And I really didn't know how to write. I went to some classes and went to some coaching seminars, and they talked about outlining, and it took a long time. It took 9 years, but it didn't take me 9 years to write my second book, or my third book. It took maybe half that time.
Why'd you do the second one? Just because you found a good story?
It was
or-
another good story, and actually it had been recommended that I write that story about Danny Green first.
Somebody told you that?
Somebody, a cop friend, said, why don't you write about Danny Green first? I said, no, I want to write about my family first. But the end of the rise and fall of the Cleveland Mafia talks about Danny Green, so it was almost like a sequel.
Just go
Almost
right
like a
into it.
sequel, yeah.
Blends
Yeah,
together.
a lot of the research overlapped. And then I had a little bit of success,
How's it become a movie?
regionally.
How like after you write a book, do you shop it, or do people come
Well,
to
you
you?
can, or people may come to you. In this case, somebody came to me before it was even on the shelf. Actually, 2 people came to me. The producer who actually was the one who shepherded it through to become a film, that was Tommy Reed. But then there was also interest from a guy who had been in Cleveland and Collinwood and went out west. I think he was in the real estate business, but he wanted to make movies. And then I had the deal, and I got the services of an agent, Peter Miller, and he said, all right, this one you could throw out, because from the language, and contracts, from the language you could tell that this guy
know what
really
they're talking
didn't
about.
know
No,
what he was
I
talking
think-
about.
no.
This guy knows he knows the business, and we just got to do some negotiating. And that was 1997, and the book came out on the shelf in 1998.
So when you sign these things, are you done? Like they can make it anything they want, or do you?
Pretty much.
We
When
were
were
just
talking
talking about that.
Yeah.
Because
Did that
it's-
happen?
Yeah, a lot of
Did
people
it
don't
change?
realize it. Yes, it did. I had nothing to do with the screenplay. I didn't have any rights to
Did that bother you?
approve anything. Well, yes and no, because when all was said and done and the film got made, I felt I was blessed. The film got made. Here's a
Based on a
local
book by him.
regional
Sure.
regional author.
Sure.
I'm getting credit for it. But would I have liked to done some things differently?
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Would you do it differently? I mean, can you do it differently now that you have a bigger?
Well,
name?
now I'm writing the screenplay.
So you can do it how you want to do it.
Well, to a degree.
But here's the thing.
More I can.
And as I told Rick, I said, here's the rub on that. People say, when a studio buys the rights, They can make it whatever they want.
That's my question.
They bought the rights. They got
Yeah.
to make whatever they want. If they're going to do it, they like the book, they're going to stick. They want to be something special. They could be close to the book. They should stick to that. But like, I know friends of mine like who had movies made about them or their life, and we go, "Did you like the movie?" They go, "It was somebody's life. It wasn't mine, but it was somebody." You
Yeah.
know, that happens. And I know a friend of mine who sold a script, had a script at Fox, and he was a consultant. He says, "What are you, crazy? You can't write this. It'll get me killed." He said, and he killed the deal because he said, you put this out, this will get me killed. So those things happen. What happened? But with Rick wants to control, which as he should. He's written 4 books now. You want to control the narrative. He wants to write the screenplay. The rub on that is getting money put up with a guy who hasn't written a screenplay before. He's been a best-selling author. Guys who write, for books, writing for stage, writing for film are 2 different things. It's a whole different thing. And if you ain't got a name, it's hard to get people attached.
Do you think you could have, looking back, charged more for that book, the Irishman book, that end up becoming such a successful
Charge
movie?
more for
when you got paid for the
contract to
rights.
negotiate.
Yeah. Or were you at the?
I don't think so. I think
Were you
I
in a
did-
spot where you just
I
had
think
to
I
take what you
did
could get?
pretty well. I was happy with
they offered.
I was
Yeah.
happy with
But
that.
it ended up being
and,
very
and my
successful.
manager, it wasn't the first offer. There was negotiation that went on, and that I credit having a good manager. Peter Miller. And that's their job. That's what they do. They try and get the most and get the the provisions in your favor. But it's a back and forth. I was happy about that.
Did you get to go to the movie set and stuff too?
I did. It was in Detroit, and that was a whole other thing because Ohio did not have the film tax
credit at that
rebate
time.
credit that they
Now we do.
that they had.
And so he shot it. Detroit
That
for
upset a
Cleveland.
lot of people too.
Of course, but you can't. It's business. That's the business.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's Detroit. We talked about things. We were talking about some of the things I got in the hopper. But it's Youngstown for Youngstown. But I'm not going to disrespect my town. But I'm going to tell the story. You got to tell the story the way it is. The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's the story. That's part of our history. It's not all our history. It's some of our history.
Yeah.
But it's.
I get bad rapped about the movie, and I got to say it's the Hollywood version of the story.
Yeah.
I get it that your relative was not killed; he died in prison. I get those little things like that, but I didn't have any control over
Were you
that.
when you went? Were you a big shot though? I mean, were they like, this is the guy that wrote this thing?
I
Or
got to
did
sit.
you meet
I
any
got
actors?
to sit in one of the chairs, but it wasn't mine.
Yeah?
So if anybody came, whoever's
up?
chair it was, I was going to have to get up.
Did you
No, they
meet
treated
any-
me very nicely on the set. It was great. It
Any
was
actors?
Code Entertainment. Oh, I met many of the actors, not all of them. Christopher Walken. I got a picture with. Tony Darrow, Vincent D'Onofrio.
D'Onofrio was good.
I mean, you had to be thinking, these guys they're in my.
Oh, it was the coolest thing to see those stories that had been adapted to the screenplay coming to life. They were blowing up a lot of stuff during that week that I was there. So a lot of it was, and I had never been on a movie set before. A lot of it was setting up, and they'd take an hour and a half,
Forever.
2 hours, 3 hours to set up. And then they do the shot and it'd be done in 30 seconds. So, and I had my son and daughter with me, and they were young. I don't know, they were like
they get
9 and 12 or
Bored,
something
silly,
like that. And,
right?
Yes. There's filming going on over here, and they're on the sidewalk playing with somebody's dog.
Right.
But it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
It really was.
It was a good film. It was a good film. I watched it. It was a good film.
If you do this next one, do you think you could do it in Cleveland?
I
Or
don't
around
know,
here?
But this, I'm working.
Not this
with-
one, the third one, the one you're saying
Well,
is in production
that's
now.
out of my hands too.
Oh, okay.
That's out of my hands. Yeah, that's in development. I think they have plans to film in Cleveland.
Well, wouldn't you?
But this I'm working on as a made-for cable series with my co-writer. We talk about Danielle Alberico. We're working on a pilot now, and we're very, very excited about it.
Why do you think there's a million mafia stories? Why are they picking yours, you think?
Well,
why are they so fascinated with
picking-
what you're doing?
Well, I think because I've developed a knack for picking good stories, picking the best stories out of the good stories. There are a lot, but like you were talking about, Ray, there has to be a hook. There has to be a character that's bigger than life. Well, Danny Green was bigger than life.
Yeah.
Chandra Burns was bigger than life. Somebody asked me, I do presentations. It's been a nice sideline. We get the slides in the back, the mobsters and the mugshots and the murder scenes and all that. Somebody asked me, how come you've never written a book about John Scalish? Now, John Scalish was a very powerful figure for a long period of time, several decades.
He was the mob boss.
He was a mob boss in Cleveland.
For years.
But he was one of the smart guys that stayed off the radar screen.
That's right.
So he
Not a
wasn't
good
bigger
character.
than life.
Well,
So there's not really a
the
story there.
We've talked about it because people say, "Oh, Carlo Gambino, right? Why is his number Carlo Gambino?" There's guys who I know, guys in his crew, who used to say when you never heard him talk. There's never on no tape ever. He would say if they talk about a guy had to go, he'd look and go.
He's not a
He'd
set.
nod.
That's
He'd
it.
nod. Meaning yes.
Yeah.
If they talk about, he just look at. That's it. Tony Ricardo, who was the boss of Chicago, I got guys saying, "Oh, right, I have a guy who's saying, hey, Ray, we get the story, we get Tony Ricardo's story. What do you think?" I go, why? I said, as far as I don't know everything, but I know pretty much a lot about it. And I have friends of mine in Chicago and who are closer to it. I said, "Did you ever hear him talk?" They go, "Oh, no, he only talked to two people," which is true. It was Joey Aupa and Jackie Cerrone, who was the one and two men as his first underboss and consigliere. What's the hook? 'Cause you never heard him on anything. Well, he was supposed to be one of the guys in Capone's gang during the Valentine's Day's massacre. I said, okay, and? Well, there's no story. There's no hook. So how can you tell a 2-hour story? But you got to tell a story in an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes. Who's going to sit down and watch that?
And the other thing, Mike, about the Chandra Burns story is one of the words today you hear a lot about, diversity. This story, there's a lot of diversity as far as organized crime. You had a little bit of that in Youngstown, too. But the whole backdrop are the black numbers operators, guys like Virgil Ogletree, Don King. I think you probably heard of that name, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Because
and the whole numbers
who was the first guy? Because I read there's 4 or 5 guys in there you have in there who were the policy kings.
Well, it goes back to the 20s and 30s.
But who was the first guy who ran a big name? Or the first one you who was the first that you said?
I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but they were almost all of them were black. The pictures probably in the front there, but they started off in the 20s and 30s, and then the mob, the Mayfield Road mob, moved in on them and was taking a percentage for a while, and that was policy. And policy is the little balls.
Rufus Jones and
Rufus Jones was
Buster Matthews.
Yeah, Buster Matthews. Those were the first two big ones. But policy was the first type of game, and it used little balls, but it was prone to cheating. You could cheat very easily when you put those balls in that bag and shake them up. What they would do is they would heat the balls, they would freeze the balls that they wanted the puller to take out. See, depending on how many people bet certain numbers, they would know that ahead of time. If they had too much money on certain numbers, they didn't want those numbers to be pulled. So they'd freeze the balls, they'd heat them, they'd shave them concave or convex, and they'd have a second set of balls, and they'd rig the game basically so that the numbers that were played the most did not get picked. And that's when the clearinghouse came. What's that?
So the house could keep it.
The house wins by cheating.
Right.
But then that led to the rise of clearinghouse.
Now, what is that?
Clearinghouse was the lottery, basically the illegal lottery. It was a 3-digit number. And in Cleveland, they used, during the most popular period of time, they used stock market figures. It was the
last that day.
Yes, the daily figures, the advances, the declines, and the unchanged. And they'd line them up in a column. It'd be 913. That's your winning number for the day, 913. In Chicago, we talked about Chicago. I think they used horse race results. So there were different ways of doing it, but almost impossible to cheat. So that became much more popular, and that's something that Don King, as a younger man, was doing. Virgil Ogletree,
Benny Mason.
Chandra Burns, Benny Mason. That's that's the name I was trying to remember.
Is he the first? Because
he was the real big, like the
Cleveland's first major policy operator.
Yes.
But then you have earliest and most notable, but policymaker was Rufus Jones and Buster Matthews.
Yeah, there were a few of them. They had different games.
Benny Mason probably became after him, and then became bigger than them.
Well, he operated it like a business. He had, and he paid his taxes too. That was a big thing. I think we might have mentioned Al Capone before.
Remember Frank Costello when he got him on thing? They asked him that Bobby got him thinking Frank Costello, and Frank Costello was considered, the prime minister of organized crime. And Bobby Kennedy's grinding and goes, "I pay my tax. I pay my tax."
Right.
It's a funny sign because he said, "What do you think you've done as an American citizen? What do you think you contribute to the American society?" I pay my tax. That is a funny sign.
And that probably kept them out of trouble federally, at least with the IRS.
Yeah.
Maybe not the FBI, but
Right.
guys like Chandra Burns, Al Capone, of course.
Al Capone went away. As big as he was, a strong one.
Right.
IRS.
Taxes were a big issue. Income taxes was one of the ways that they get them. They'd take their car. They'd, they couldn't own property. They couldn't have a legitimate job because they'd attach their wages. And those are challenges that a lot of the guys, including Chandra Burns, had to deal with through the decades.
Yeah.
Do you think that your background in police work helps write the books?
I think they complemented each other, Mike. That's an interesting question I've been asked before. I think that having been a cop made me a better writer, and having been a writer and sitting down and interviewing people made me a better cop, made me a better investigator. So I think they kind of complemented each other.
Yeah. Because you guys are filling out reports all the time, right? And interviewing people all the time, right?
You're always talking to somebody or documenting something.
Right.
As soon as you get a call, even if it's just it's going to be a log entries, everything is always getting documented. And then more and more, you need reports for everything. You go on a call and you're there more than a few minutes, or it's something significant, you're going to wind up writing a report. It might not be a long report, but you're going to have to write a report.
Is it rare that someone who has ties to the mafia back when turns into a police officer?
Yeah. Next question, Ray.
It's rare, isn't it?
No.
Or does it happen more than I think?
It's funny. It had been.
I'm not going to get whacked.
It had been decades. It had been decades since my family had been involved in organized crime, so it wasn't really a concern. There were some jokes that would be made here and there, but it really, as far as like my background investigation, I mean, the Porrellos were out of organized crime after we got out of the 1930s. I was born in the 60s, so. So
did anyone put it together that you were related to those folks? Did anyone even think of that?
I think they knew. Yeah. You had that. I don't want to say stigma,
Well, sure. I would think so.
I had a friend of mine in New York whose family was organized and Gambino family, and he was an active cop. That gets sticky.
I know who you're talking about.
That gets sticky.
Or even the other way around. You don't see someone from a federal agent turning his grandson turning into organized crime usually either. So I just
probably not usually. Yeah. Right.
So.
Right.
So I mean, it gets sticky. I'm sure, especially because they don't want look, the federal government they don't want no headaches for nothing. And you want, if it's going after organized crime is one thing. To have a family member on the police departments, that'd be a headache. That would cause people problems. I would think so.
Yeah. Well, their background investigations are even much deeper than working for a local agency. You have pages and pages and
But you know what? One of my
relatives.
One of my favorite lines in Godfather 2 is when Michael Corleone's sitting on the stand and he tells us, talking about his family and he's a war hero, this and that, and they say your family did this, your family did that, and he looks up, he says, come on, sir. He says we're both part of the same hypocrisy. It's a great line, but it's the truth.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. Yeah.
Do you of your 4 books, which is the best read? You think? Are you a way better writer?
There's babies, man.
Are you a way better writer now? I mean, have you evolved?
It's tough for me to not say this current book, Bombs, Bullets, and Bribes, but yes, I am a better writer now than I was in the beginning. I see it developing. You just learn more. You work with editors. You learn from them. And I've had some great editors I'd work with.
And I read all 4 books. I mean, 3 books. I'm in the midst of writing.
Are you the most proud of the first one though?
Well, there's a certain kind of affection I have for that first one because it was about my family.
Yeah.
And because it took 9 years of my life to get that book out finally. But Kill the Irishman,
What's been the most
naturally,
successful?
I'd have to say Kill the Irishman. It was
Irishman,
adapted for film. I mean,
yeah, that's been the most successful.
Christopher Walken was in it.
Oh, what a great ensemble cast. Val Kilmer, Vincent D'Onofrio, and
yeah, it was a good cast. Good cast.
Linda Cardellini. yeah, it was just and some of the actors from some of the famous mob movies and The Sopranos, Vinnie Vella.
I know Vinnie very well.
Passed
Oh, did he pass away?
Yeah, just pretty recently.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Vinnie Vella's a guy. He was a character actor, but he was, he was typical, right out of Central Casting, hanging down on Mulberry Street. He always had his picture, a video, a signed picture for you. Even if you don't ask it, he's giving it to you. On the back, Sopranos actor.
Yeah.
Guys been making a living off of that. When guys they try to live off of that for a long time.
Mike Starr.
I know Mike.
Film.
Mike's a friend.
Tony Darrow. If you know Tony Darrow,
I've heard
so how exciting that was for me to be on that and see these guys bringing these scenes to life. It was a very exciting time for me.
Do you, when people are writing fiction, like sometimes they go away and get away from everything so they can just clear their head and write. Right. You have facts and stuff, so it may be a little bit different. But do you do anything so that you don't get a writer's block, or do you know what I'm saying when you're writing?
I'm not smart, or I should say I'm not disciplined enough to have a routine like the experts say you should. If you have to be up at 7 o'clock, then you set your clock for 5:30 and you write for 90 minutes. I was never able to do that. I rotated shifts, and actually that's an excuse. I just didn't have the discipline to do that. So I write whenever I can. But what I've been doing now is if the family's not home, I might be in the office writing. But more often than not, I'm going to a coffee shop. I'm going to a Panera, getting a cup of coffee. I'm sitting down and finding a quiet corner, and I'm sitting there for 2 hours.
Like you see the young kids at Starbucks. That are
they're there all day.
Studying.
They're all day.
Yeah. But you always see writers that you saw it in L.A. You see it here in Youngstown. You go ask people on business, and it's the best office without having to have one office.
Right. Yeah, stay there. I'll eat lunch. I get I start with a coffee. I'll eat lunch. And then, not dessert. Don't say it, Ray. I want to have dessert. No, I get a nice tea.
No. He makes fun of me.
I get it. I'll buy an iced tea, and then that'll last me another hour.
But that's how the coffee shops started. That was the reason for the coffee shops. And when they started back in the 70s in Seattle, Northwest America, now it's what the Starbucks has become known for. They're sitting places. They're meeting places.
Yes.
That's right.
It's the best office without having to have one.
I know our time's probably getting short, but is there something next that you already have in your mind now that this is out?
Book-wise or project-wise?
Okay, let's go project-wise.
Well, project-wise is the screenplay I was telling Ray about that my co-writer and I wrote about my life. It's basically the story of an 18-year-old drummer who suddenly finds himself working
we didn't even
for a
talk
major
about that. We're going to get to
entertainer.
that. I'm sorry, we're going to go back. Go ahead.
So that's going to be
that's
the project.
Right. And then he leaves the top of the music industry to become a cop. So that's done. We're just starting to shut
Were you at the top of the music industry?
I was working for Sammy Davis Jr. You tell me.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
Drummer for Sammy Davis' group band.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
And then
I followed my brother. My brother Ray was his drummer for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
When he left, they auditioned me. I went on the road for 2.5 years, left to become a cop, and that's basically the story. It's a based on story.
Right.
So there's there's some freedom that we've taken. And then the other project, like I said, we're working on a series, a cable series about the Shonda Byrne story.
No other book though? You got another book in mind?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay.
See,
well, let's get back to the Sammy Davis.
I would love if Rick would have wrote my book, but he never came to me. But
he didn't come to you. Well, not yet.
Yeah, he was a little busy.
There's got to be a sequel.
He wasn't interested.
No, he wasn't.
He said,
Well,
I remember he said, Ray, there's no story. I heard about it. There's no story.
I would have never said that. He's trying to make me feel bad.
So you've hung with Sammy Davis Jr.?
Well, I worked for him. I mean,
Yeah.
2.5 years travel. We traveled internationally.
What's he like?
He was wonderful. I mean, Ray, you
know
saw him
him.
entertainer-wise.
Yeah.
The greatest show, bar none, I ever saw in Vegas.
Yeah.
Everyone, I've seen Frank Sinatra, great show. Don't get me wrong. I've seen El Martino. I've seen Tony Bennett. I've seen him, the big name players out there. By far. But he was the best show ever because he was a triple threat. He told jokes, funny. He did a quadruple threat. Did impressions. You see him do impressions, sing, dance. 50. And he played instruments.
Played instruments.
Drums.
He'd sometimes come up and play the drums. And
Nice guy though.
Nice guy, always. Everybody always ball busting about something.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
teasing me because I was the youngest.
Uh-huh.
I was 18. And
Do you have a name for you?
for a while, it was New Boy.
New boy.
That
Hey,
makes
new
sense.
boy. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, new
Well, I
boy.
like that. But you know what's funny? And I met Sammy. Sam Davis is about 5'2",
Uh-huh.
and he's about $110. He ain't much heavier than $110. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no,
No, his
exactly.
ring
He
is way
was
more
this
than him.
big. He was big.
You know?
But and he always, he's married to May Britt for
My Brit, yep,
for
a while,
years.
yep.
Yeah.
All the white women loved him, and I get it. He was
Isn't it amazing
something.
that voice came out of that body?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And
Like,
he started
usually-
really doing impressions when he sung. They were impressions of other singers, and then someone suggested that he'd try it, straight singing, and that's how his
But
singing career
people
took
forget
off.
he started as a young boy. He was
like
a
2
tap,
years old, 3
tap-
years old,
It was
or-
his brother, tap dancer. He was what do they call him? There's a
The Will Maston Trio.
yes, but
Yeah, it was
there's
his father and uncle.
there's a term type of
like out on the street to make money. That
no,
kind.
he tap danced. He did all. Man, he was talented, man, from the get go. Talented as they come.
Why'd you ever leave that? Or was
You're
he
talking
done?
about vaudeville. Is that what you were going to say?
No. But there's a name. They call these guys who. I'm trying to think. I'll think of the word, but there's a term.
Why did I leave?
Yeah.
To become a cop.
Well, yeah, but
It seems more attractive.
that seems
than
like a
being on the road
terrible
with Sam.
idea, by the way.
It'd be-
Why?
Going down and trying to shoot him
This
up,
is not
run him
the-
down, shoot him up was much more attractive than being with Sammy Davis Jr. on
not
the road.
glamorous.
It just was.
You're in the
This is
glamour.
not the first time that I ever heard that, Mike. It is not the first time.
Well,
I
so
heard
why?
That. I heard that a lot back then because in my heart, the drive was that I wanted to become a cop. I had an interest.
You're a good guy,
in
man.
police
Get the
work.
bad guys off the street.
Well,
Why
yeah,
not?
why?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
why?
it.
Because protecting
Protect and serve.
society was more important than entertaining them. But I had the interest in police work prior to going on the road and becoming, a traveling drummer with a major entertainer. And then I had a cousin, and that's part of the story too, part of the screenplay. I had a cousin who became a cop when I was a teenager, and that further cemented my interest. Yeah, it was a bizarre career transition, and that's why we think we have a really good screenplay.
Do you know who's going to play you?
No, we haven't.
We
I haven't
gotta
even
finish the
thought about that.
screenplay.
Well,
No, the screenplay's done.
He might have it in
Screenplay's
his
done.
mind,
Yeah.
right?
What's
People-
that?
he's
You don't have
that-
anybody in your mind at all?
I don't.
Or did
I
he even
don't
play
even
Sammy?
think, and I'm not real good with the.
And plus, there's so many good young
with the
actors
actors and
now.
actresses,
Young
yeah.
actors now, because you want you to play him as a young man
Yeah.
and age. They don't want
he's going to need drum lessons, probably.
Oh, he's got to do his own stunts?
Hey, the kid did it for when he did the movie Whiplash.
Whiplash, right,
He
right.
did it. He did it. He
Yeah,
took the drum.
and this is kind of a Whiplash or an Almost Famous type story.
This is a screenplay for a movie, not a series.
Screenplay for a movie. Yeah.
Do you know what it'll be
The
called?
word I was trying to think of, flapper.
Oh
Guys,
yeah,
they call
yeah.
Sammy.
Oh,
Guys,
yeah.
they're because they did tap dance and all that. They're flappers back. That's it.
Do you have a name for it yet?
A name for
The screenplay.
On the Road with Sammy. It's just our working
Working
title
title.
for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. Let's.
I you know what?
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
Tuesdays with Maury became
Yeah.
a movie.
That
They're
ended up being pretty good.
Tuesday Maury, on the road with Sam. Why not? I like it. Why
Because
not?
he didn't go
No.
on the road. He was probably in the same place all the time. Was he
No,
on the
we
road?
were all over
He
the
bounced
place,
around?
man. Vegas, Lake Tahoe, Atlantic City, South
Bouncing.
America, Europe.
Do you have like a private jet? Did you guys go on your private?
No, he may have from time to time, but generally we were taking commercial flights. Of course, if we happened to be on the same flight, he'd be in first class. Probably we'd be back in coach, but it was okay. And on rare occasion, we also would be on a bus. I remember
Get on the
Florida.
bus, Gus. Forget
Florida.
about us.
We were in Florida for 4 or 5 different cities. Like just a couple nights here and there.
yeah,
We
did a
were on
bus
a
tour,
bus.
yeah.
Do you have groupies?
Yeah, in the places that we stay, like Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe. Yeah, I would say there were groupies. Yeah,
Not just for him. I mean for you.
yeah.
For the band,
And again, I'm gonna have to go with the next question.
Hey,
Jeez,
they
it's a
get
podcast,
the
for God's sake.
leftovers, man.
Who cares?
They just want to be in show business. It don't matter who.
No.
Oh,
There
we're
were-
drummer. Well, can't have Sammy. Now do the drum. Why
swear
not?
to God,
There
I'm
were
the
no
drummer.
leftovers for the young drummer.
I swear to God,
The
I'm
new
the drummer.
boy. Yeah.
The young drummer
Please
was pretty
believe
popular.
me. I'm the drummer, honest.
Oh man, but that's fine. But I was gonna say, early career, you're a musician, who and transitioned, became a cop and successful cop, 30-something years on the force, climbed the ladder, police chief, and then getting ready to retire. Now you're writing screenplays full time. written this is your 4th book. You had a movie. One of your screenplays turned into a movie. I mean, that's tremendous success.
Well, one
That's
of the
pretty good.
books. One of the books. Yeah.
turned into
Yeah.
a
That's a pretty
movie.
good life.
Yeah.
That's a pretty
I
good
think so.
thing.
I really have been blessed. I really have been.
And you know, but you know what? I tell people again, you create your own, you create your success. You create your because it don't come to you. You got to go take it. You got to go take it.
So I read somewhere one of the things on Facebook, a meme, and it said, "Success is not owned; it's rented, and the rent is due every day."
That's right.
I like that.
That's right. You got to pay the dues every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. We talk about it here all the time. The variations of the definition of success. They've heard it, so they're bored with it. I said one of my favorite, it's my favorite now, and I change this often, is when preparation meets opportunity. That's success.
Yeah.
Because when you're prepared, you're ready, you've done your diligence, and you get that shot,
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
That door opens.
Yeah. You know, and you got to walk through. It ain't
Yeah.
nobody
For
gonna
me,
do it.
this is success. Be sitting here with you on your online
I mean,
show.
For
and,
my success, for me, it's like, but
No,
hey,
it's a big
but
deal
no-
for me, honest.
No,
This is pretty
no,
cool.
No, no, I'm very fortunate. I got, look, people always say, for instance, okay, we're gonna talk, and this is what this show's about. I want to. It's a conversation. I want people. I was telling Rick the show when it first was approached. Mike, I was saying, I want it to be a conversation between us or I guess whoever, and audiences over like they're leaning into our, and hearing our conversation. If we were in a restaurant, they're over hearing our conversation. So this is that moment. And I was saying that, got a couple things in a hopper that we're looking to do, but the show I want, but this type of show I've been wanting to do is a storytelling show that's information, informative, entertaining, inspirational, all these inclined. But it's a message. It's mess. I want like lessons to be learned.
Sure.
And here's a guy who you've been able to transition to other things. Like myself, I tried to do it. I don't know how successful, but I'm trying to, and I had a guy, I'm having a meeting Friday, next fight, upcoming Saturday, cut to, I said transition, Mike?
Yeah,
see that?
no,
Segue?
segue.
Yes, thank you. FS1, we're going to be back in the game on our next fight, FS1 this Saturday night out of Oxon Hills, Maryland. And, wish I could, the main, Wale Amatosa and Brian Cantano fighting for the world junior middleweight title. Great fight. Both guys come forward.
You're ringside on FS1,
so I'll be doing
right?
commentary. Yes. So
Oh,
back.
nice.
So, but one of the things is I'm having a meeting on Friday with some people coming in about a meeting about a project that I have, a screenplay that I own, and you got to trying to find money and people and say, sort of flying in. And what I'm saying is, a guy said to me, and here's the reason I'm bringing this up. I'm going a long way, folks. I tell you, we're going a long way.
It's gonna be good. This better be good.
I
but
go
it's
by
gonna be
way
good.
of Sandusky to get to this story.
Yeah.
Dude. That he said, one of the reasons I'm interested in meeting you. He said, you've made the transition. You were a good fighter. He said, now. He said, you've done movies. I've seen you do movies before you've done. He said, I'm interested because you adapted yourself. You've made the transition. You've been able to do that. And I was very proud of it. And I'm not trying, I'm just saying, because people, and I made the joke to him. And he said, well, I couldn't assure you. I do not look at you as that. I made the joke. I went into meetings, and I go into auditions. I used to go into auditions, and I go into meetings. But when I go into auditions and say, oh, so you're the fighter that's you're a fighter that's acting. And I said, a long time, I go into meetings, and I go, no. Now, when I go into meetings, they say, oh, you're a fighter that's acting. I said, no. I'm the actor who fought.
He used to
go.
fight,
There you
right?
go.
And I used to fight, right.
like that.
And he said, that intrigued. He said, when you told me, he said, that's what intrigues me, and why I want to have this meeting. And I was very flattered and very honored. All I meant was you're able to transition. Look, some successful, not so successful. I'm always searching to be, successful.
You keep busy. You keep
That's it.
searching.
You gotta-
That's
you got
another
things
thing I
that-
heard. If you want to get something done, and it seems counterintuitive, find a busy person to do it. Find a busy person.
Or
to
get
do
involved with people smarter than you.
it. Yes.
Which is what I try to do.
Yeah.
But I always tell people there's three things in life you're doing. You're either moving forward, you're moving backward, or you're standing still. 2 to 3 ain't good.
Yeah.
And in life, you got to be moving forward, man. I mean, it doesn't mean you won't get knocked back a couple of times, but that you move forward. And when you get knocked on your ass, you hear the cliches, you get up, yeah, But when you get, you got to get up. Yeah, but when you get up, what do? Move forward, or you move them back, or you do nothing. That getting up. Okay, now what? Now getting up is after you get up. What happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's what
three steps forward, 2 steps back.
And in this business, and it's a trend. I've been in the business a long time, and not where I want to be. And I tell this all the time. When I came back to Youngstown, to make it a production destination, to make us a area where people want to shoot instead of going to Cleveland, and we're not going to get the $150 million, $200 million films. I tell you that. Pittsburgh or Cleveland's going to get that, but that 1 to 15 we're ideal for. $1 to $50 million independent film we're ideal for, because we can give you everything that Cleveland and Pittsburgh, but at a much better price.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing really holds back is that we don't have the hotels that they have, or the big city entertainment that they have. But we got a lot going on here. So that's the whole reason I came back. But things like what you're doing and stuff, that's it. It's to being able to make the transition. I think that intrigues people, why people want to get involved. And coming back, you're looking for people. I'm looking for local people who want to get involved with the entertainment business. I get involved. I tell people all the time, and Rick, you know as well as I do. Mike, we've talked about it. I tell you, there's 3 reasons. It's a sexy business. People want to be involved in a sexy business. I meet with realtors all the time, and guys who are Wall Street guys, and they say, because I want something different, man. What I do is not exciting. That's exciting. I would like to try that. And 2, it's a sexy business. 2, you can make a ton of money, and you will. It's very difficult to lose money now. Very difficult. And I don't mean to say, well, you got to be. It's a business. There's so many distribution.
There's so many outlets now.
Mm-hmm. You got to be almost stupid. And I mean that because it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Well, you got to have content is everything. Content is king. Mm-hmm. But if you have the story and you have and if you're the producer, I like to think of the producer. I'd like to think you control where the narrative goes. In other words, you make it for a number, you sell it for a number. As simple as that. It's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, make the joke, but it's not a joke. If an ex-pug like me gets it, it's not rocket science. It's a numbers game, but you got to have numbers. You got to have some common sense and business sense, but you got to have human relations too, man. You got to be built on human relations. And some people come in the room and they got no personality.
Yeah, right. That's a big part of it.
And that's a big part of it.
Yeah, that chemistry.
So I was very flattered when the gentleman told me that. The transition. He was intrigued by making a transition. And that really intrigued me. And I don't know, if we can make the deal, we're hopeful, but they're interested, and I'm going to try to get this thing going. But that's what I'm saying. It's hard to get people. There's people out there. A lot of people making money. Making movies. We just got to find that guy. Find them. So somebody will come by, and if you got a good story, but it's always about good stories.
Yeah, you got to have the writing first. That's got to be done.
Well, people always say to me, it's funny you said that, because Mike would always say, well, who do you got?
Yeah.
I said, who do you want to hear?
Yeah.
And they go, well, I said, who do you want to hear? I said, how about Pacino? You get Al Pacino? I said, sure, why not? Robert De Niro? Sure, you get De Niro? I said, sure, why not? How about Pacino and De Niro together? Because what I tell you right now is all bullshit. It don't mean nothing. Mm-hmm. It's all, until you have the story, until you have the script to get actors attached, until the story is written, it's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's all content is king. It's in them. Because if I don't get Pacino and I don't get De Niro, maybe I get Hoffman. I get, Robert Duvall. Somebody's going to do that because that's a good script. Mm-hmm. If it's the script that valuable, it's that good. It's all that is. So, I mean, it's just, it drives me nuts. It's always about who can you get. It don't matter who can get now. Mm-hmm. Once you have a good story, you will be able to. You'll turn down guys you never thought you'd be. You'll get guys you never thought you can get, and you have to turn them down.
I think the average person has no idea about what goes into a movie getting made.
No.
I know I don't.
And everything you do,
how you give up your rights if your property's optioned, you may give up certain rights.
And what do you have to do?
How much time it takes.
Rick, and more than anything, what do you have to do without selling your soul?
Yeah.
Because your soul's put into that script.
And they think you're making millions and millions of dollars.
When I hear that, I laugh.
Yeah.
I laugh. People, no, man, people who want millions and millions for a story, like if they're talking about the book, The Good Son Did Well. I've been approached about doing a movie based on the documentary. I was telling Rick this. I said, I've been approached, Sony Classic was interested. I don't know if I'm interested. Why? Because that's as good as it gets, baby. I think that's as good as it got. I love that. I love the documentary.
But I'm sure there are some people that just chase the dollars.
But
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But if your name, it's your statement, your story.
Sure.
But he said it could make you anything you want it there. They
Yeah.
can make me wearing, tutus and and wearing, drag
Oh, they
queen
can, 'cause they're in charge.
Because exactly, once you sell it, you're selling it. You have no control over it after that. You like to think you're going to stick to what the content is. But that's not the fact. So you're right. That's what I'm saying. If you're chasing no money buck, then that's part of the deal. You sell your soul, and then you find and whatever comes out out of
It's
it.
just the nature of the business.
But
Hey, let me ask you one more thing, and then he'll probably wrap it up. But did you ever get shot? Did you ever shoot
No.
anybody?
No. Thank God. Never shot anybody. Never
shot
was
at?
shot at. No.
No gun battle or anything like that?
No, had guns and cars.
Yeah.
That you always think that that's a possibility. But fortunately, never had a gun pulled on me. I worked in a suburb of
Yeah,
Cleveland.
a little nicer area.
With low crime rate.
Only takes one though.
Well,
you
that's
know?
true, and I was fortunate in that regard. Yeah.
well, when guys coming from the city, they ain't going in the city. They're coming to the burbs looking for.
It might be
Yeah.
driving through. You don't know. Mayfield Road's a long road.
Yeah, freeway 271.
Sure. All right, that was it.
Anyhow,
Sorry.
Rick, we got to get you back, man. We got to get you back. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. Talk about the books again. But for right now, the newest book called Bombs, Bullets, and Bribes, the story of Shonda Burns, Alex Shonda Burns. Real character, man. Real character. When you talk the hierarchy of the Jewish mob from the beginning, everyone know about Arnold Rothstein, Hyman Roth.
Was he really
No,
Public
kid,
Enemy
based
number
on-
one?
Hyman was.
Hyman Roth
from
was
the-
based after
yeah.
Arnold Rothstein.
Was that
Was he really Public Enemy number one?
He was at one time. Yeah, during the 30s and 40s.
That's
I
pretty
would
good.
say, Yeah.
Or bad. I mean, depending.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I guess is what I'm saying.
It was his reputation.
I meant Hyman Roth was based
yeah,
after
based-
Arnold Rothstein.
yeah,
But Meyer Lansky, Mo Dellitz,
Yeah.
Shonda Burns,
Yeah.
the great Jewish. There's Abby Swillman from New York.
Oh, there's a ton of them,
There's so many,
and ones that were higher in the hierarchy than Shonda Burns. But Shonda Burns was
character.
more. He was just a bigger than life character. And like I said, there's so much diversity.
How did he die?
He okay. Spoiler alert here.
Oh, is this at the end of the book?
Yeah.
Well, no, who cares? Look, so people tell me I don't want to know that. I'm going to tell you who did it. Just what
Well,
you
it
guys
is
did, you
300
take the
pages.
ride.
You might as well
You
just
take
tell
the
me.
ride to see how they got there.
I'm lucky to get a golf magazine on the
You ain't
plane.
gonna remember. You know you
Yeah.
got it, but how did he get it?
All right, so go ahead.
Spoiler alert. Okay, he was blown up at 25th and Detroit on the west side. Of
Like in a
Cleveland.
car? Like one of those car
In a
bombs?
car, yeah. The bomb was
cool.
probably put under his car, and he was blown to
Smithereens.
bits. Blown to smithereens. Not like, I mean, that was overkill.
Like a huge bomb for a little car.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted him
Well,
gone.
there
Do
you
we
go.
know who?
Hey,
Yeah. We do, but you got to
In the book.
Read
You
the
got
book.
to read
I
the
didn't
book.
ask you
I
that,
didn't know if it was a mystery or
Mike,
not.
I
And
ain't asking
remember
that.
too, he was portrayed in Kill the Irishman, the movie, by Christopher Walken, which
He
is
played
kind of
Shonda
cool.
Burns?
Christopher Walken played Shonda Burns
Oh,
in the movie
I
Kill
didn't
the
realize
Irishman.
that.
Yeah,
I did not realize.
which is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, you got a major star like that
Yeah.
playing him.
And Hell's Angels are involved. You got FBI informants. You got Greek gambling operators. Didn't you guys have the Greek coffee house? Was
Yes,
it?
yeah. There was Greek operating houses around there. There's two brothers that were big.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of there's some main female characters too. Some so we think it's got all the right parts.
Who's the mean female and Killed Irishman?
That would have been Danny's wife, and then Danny's
played
young
her? Who
girlfriend.
played it? Tara Reid played it?
Laura Ramsey played the girlfriend, and Linda Cardellini played the
Linda
wife.
Cardellini's a good actress.
Yeah, I like her.
And
Yeah.
you know who she is. You know I knew because I had to look her up. She was on 2.5 Men for a long time. She played Charlie Sheen's girlfriend there a long time.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Linda Cardellini. She
The darker one?
dark hair guy.
Yeah, I knew
dark.
that.
She was not.
She played in Scooby-Doo.
Oh, there you
The
go.
characters.
But no,
Can't
but-
think of the
well,
character's
what
name.
if yeah. Where did you play Scooby-Doo?
That's right.
That
You
was
were
on-
Daphne.
Well, a lot of the kids know her.
Yeah. But
That's
Linda
funny.
Cardellini, good actress. But it's just anytime you get a film made, it's because you never get paid back. You know, people always say, "What do you make?" the years you put out, the years of money you put out, forget about it. It never gets paid. But it's about seeing it from. But when you see it go from script, I mean, word to page, page to script, script to film. No greater film.
Yeah, fantastic
It's
accomplishment.
You created something.
A sense of accomplishment. Yeah.
Rick, I don't know. We got to have you back, my brother. I appreciate
my
your
pleasure.
time.
Good to see you.
I appreciate your time. Rick
Good job.
Porrello.
Really
Thank
good.
you.
Great to meet
Rick
you.
Porrello. Yeah. Now, how can I get these books? Can I go to the store or can I hire them?
And you can get them at or through any bookstore that orders new books, or of course online. I'd rather see people go to their neighborhood bookstore.
I would too.
And order it.
But if for whatever reason a lot of them are shut down or not as many. I mean, there's a Barnes and Noble basically everywhere now.
Yeah.
But-
Barnes and Noble, they might have it in stock, or they get ordered. They could have it delivered to the house.
So again,
Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com.
the first one, I'm going to go back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go move on. The first one was the rise and fall of the Cleveland Mafia, Corn, Sugar, and Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was To Kill the Irishman, the war that crippled the Mafia, story of Danny Green, and made into a motion picture. And Superthief, a master burglar, the Mafia, the biggest bank heist in U.S. history, based after a real guy, Phil Christopher, out of Cleveland.
Right?
From Cleveland, right?
Yep. In development, in advanced development for film.
And right now, and he worked with some local guys here too.
Yeah, the Denzio brothers, and the whole crew, Youngstown crew, Cleveland
He was part
crew.
of the thing when they robbed the Nixon's bank. And
Well, yeah, they were going to hit Nixon's bank, and they got smart. They decided not to. not to hit that.
Christopher's part of that. Well,
yeah. Laguna Niguel. It was
Laguna
the
Niguel,
Bank
yeah,
of California.
No, they robbed it. They did rob it. The Denzio brothers robbed it, and they got the money, and they got jammed up, and they went away for that. But they were able to keep the money because whenever the president, because you know what that was about, was the president Richard Nixon taking all the money from the dairy farmers.
Yeah,
dairy farmers.
Like a slush fund.
And he put it in this big money in the bank in
They took it.
Miguel. And they robbed. So what was the president going to say? One day they were going to come out. How could it come on public knowledge? Everything he stole from the president. What's the president got the money in there for? Yeah,
Hey, if you need, like when you're doing these screenplays and stuff, and you need a newscaster to kind of talk about what's going on in the news,
Did you have someone in mind?
I'd be glad to help. I'd be glad
You'd
to
be
help.
glad to help me find somebody? Or
Well, just one person, I guess. I know a guy.
Laura.
Yeah.
Lauren, we'll have Lauren do it.
Hey, Lauren could do it. I'm just saying, if
I
you
never met Lauren.
if you need a guy, I'd love to.
Perfect.
Do that. That'd be
Well,
fun.
I'll have to get your card.
That'd be cool.
We'll call you. Don't call. We'll call.
Yeah.
They give you a typical no calls. We'll call you.
Nice.
I don't.
Mike,
Is it?
Hey, Mike. No. He's good. He's terrific. He's got. Hey, when I first met him,
I don't think-
And
when
we
I first-
probably
hey,
will.
You know what's the
I
most
this guy could be a
least-
star. You got a face for radio.
You know what the least
But I'm
flattering thing in the world is to get a SAG award when you're my age. That's you know what I'm saying. Why does anybody use that joke ever?
There you go.
All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, please, we'd like to hear from you on our Facebook and our Facebook page, Ray's Boom Boom Room. Tell us what you thought of our guests. Tell us any future suggestions. One of my favorite shows, honest to God, Rick. You're
wonderful.
terrific. You're terrific.
Thanks,
and we're
Rick.
gonna have you back. And then we're gonna.
Thank you, champ.
And
Hey, before we go,
go please.
Sunrise Inn, thank you for sponsoring the show.
Yes. I'm
He
not
hasn't
the
been
best.
there. He hasn't
I'm
been
not
there.
the best at this. I forget my sponsors.
And we
want
wanna-
to don't mention us.
The
It's
next,
important.
the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
show,
we gotta-
Rick.
gotta
The
have
next show is his 100th show. So we're having people.
This is 99.
It's 99. We're on
I know
99.
that.
So if
I
people
couldn't
want
get
to ask questions, they can go to the Facebook page or whatever.
Yes,
ask questions.
because
We'll answer
the
them on
100
next week's
show
show.
is going to be basically we're going to be eating on.
Well, we
on-
thought we were, but maybe not now.
Oh.
May have to go get a different
I
guest.
thought we were.
The burger guys in or out, John? They're out. Burger guys are out.
Oh,
Why don't we have our own damn burgers? What do we need them for?
I will order for somebody in the area. Have
Yeah.
food brought in.
We'll
How's
have some
that?
Sunrise Inn.
We thought we were going to. Yeah, what? Pizza. You know, man.
All right.
Bring some
Dave's
couple other
Cosmic Subs.
things.
Could
No,
you bring us some
pizza.
subs?
Bring some.
Some Cosmic Subs? Could you bring a few
Maybe
subs?
I could do that.
That
Maybe
would
I
be
could-
nice.
that
Maybe
would
on the
lovely.
way in.
I could do that. I can do that.
All right. Have you had them? They're in Hudson, too. Dave's
no,
Cosmic
no,
Subs?
there's one in, I think, Chagrin Falls.
So
Oh,
Chagrin
yeah.
Falls, yes, that's the,
Yeah,
well, actually, that's where the originals from Dave's, and we got one in Canfield, Ohio. Here.
Okay.
On Clanfield.
Well, I would have loved to have been at that show, but Ray did
Well,
buy
you
me
come
lunch.
back.
He did buy me
Wait
lunch.
a minute, we don't have a guest.
We don't
if you want to come back,
Be on call.
and you bring lunch, we're cool with it.
We
Totally
could
cool
do
with it.
a roundup of a real smorgasbord
Oh, yeah.
of questions and
Yeah,
guests.
that'd be great. All right, I'm good.
Anyhow, next week. Oh, you know what? Next week I may not be here.
Oh, wait a minute.
Wait. Is next week the 100 show?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Well, it's supposed to be. But since
We just added the next one is the 100th show.
If it, I just realized that. Good thing we're see on here. That's what you don't know. But to having this stuff live, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just realized I
may
may
not
not be
show up
here
for the 100th
show. So we may have to put the 100 show 2 weeks from now. But check online on Facebook. Raise Boom Boom Room. I gotta know. Raise Boom Boom Room on Facebook Live. On Facebook. Just check it out. We'll put it on social media if we're going to have it next week. But I may not be here because of a new thing that's come up.
Prior engagement.
Well, that wasn't prior. It's just prior as of like last night.
Engagement.
So, yeah, something brand new engagement.
Oh,
but
from
it's
last night.
necessary. It's a necessarily.
I understand.
I got to get going. So, but if not, I'll be back. But if not, you'll hear about it on Facebook Live or our Facebook page. And I'm back in 2 weeks. And we'll celebrate our 100th then. How's that?
Fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, Friday, this coming Saturday night from Oxon Hills, Maryland. I'll be on FS1. The show starts at 10 o'clock East Coast time. And we will be watching Wale Amatosa and Brian Catano fight for the super middleweight title. Boom, there you go.
Done.
All right, until next time, take care of each other, love each other. Good night, and God bless.